Hey everyone, and welcome to the second part of my new YouTube series. In this series, I'm going to plan an album using my new digital mini album planner, and then of course at the end I will show you the finished project. And in the first part of this series, I showed you which collection I used for decorating this album, how I inserted all the papers and decorative elements to my digital mini album planner, and we also already decorated the album cover as well as the first double page. So make sure to watch the first part if you haven't already, because in this part I'm just jumping right into decorating my double page number 2. For double page number 2, I wanted to go with this page style, which is my favorite page style, number 20. And the reason for choosing this page style is that I also got the 6x6 inch paper pad with the collection, and I actually knew that I could use one of the 6x6 inch papers on this page style just perfectly. So sometimes I choose my page style because of the photo sizes I want to use or how many photos I want to include on one double page. And then sometimes I choose my page style according to the decorative elements or the papers I want to use. And with a collection of 50 different interactive page styles, I really never struggled to find the perfect page style to use. And if you're new to my channel, I actually design my albums using a mix and match system where I choose my page styles from a collection of 50 different page styles. But for more information, I will just link my information video in the description box as well as in the top corner right now. So as you can see, the first paper I dragged in is a paper from my 6x6 inch paper pad. So I actually added 2 different folders with my papers, and this one is in the 6x6 inch paper folder. So I know that this is 6x6 inches and it actually fits perfectly on this photo mat, which is the main part of this page style. And I actually wished that this paper with all the dots also would come in the 12 by 12 inch size, but it doesn't. So I really wanted a page style where I could use this paper on. But because it's not very decorative, I definitely knew that I also wanted to add one of those cards or illustrations. And most of the cards are actually more in like a rectangle format. So I just had the option to choose this 6x6 inch paper pad because I know that all these 4 illustrations would fit very well on a square frame. So yeah, and I actually did a quick little math here because I know this paper is 6x6 inches. It includes 4 square illustrations, so each of those illustrations has to be in 3 by 3 inches. So I chose my 3 by 3 inch scallop frame. And again, I cannot simply use drag and drop here. I have to cut down this paper first, and for this I'm just locking in the scallop frame so that I can use it as a cutting mat, and then I can just lay my illustration on top or my paper on top and cut it down to the correct size. And then I can unlock my frame and actually drag it in now, and as you can see, it now fits perfectly. And then you could always double click on this paper and you can find another cutout. So I can still choose between those 4 illustrations. And then as you can see, I just tried out some different paper combinations which would go well with the illustration I chose here. And then I was quite happy with this combination of papers, but I also wanted to do something else, and that is that I actually wanted to change the corner pockets of this interactive page style. So what I did is I just grabbed those scalloped corner frames, and I knew that I could also use them as corner pockets. So I just copied them from my frame page and then I added them to the page style and just deleted the other corner pockets. Now, I really think that this would be a beautiful combination of papers and a very nice double page, but to be honest, I didn't really like the pattern paper on the left side with all the leaves on it. So I actually was trying out some other papers, so I chose this star pattern paper first, and then I thought it would go well with the plate pattern paper, and then at the end I also chose another cutout, so I was actually going with the koala instead. And yeah, I really like this combination now, but the other one, the other combination, would also look really nice in my opinion. And I actually don't know which photos to include in this album yet, so I don't have any photos ready. But I still wanted to show you what the left side, so the left page, could look like. So I just grabbed some scallop frames. I actually grabbed two of those 3 by 3 inch frames and then two smaller ones. And for the larger frames, I actually want to include some photos. And as I said, I don't have any photos, but just to like demonstrate what it would look like with photos included, I just typed in baby in this like Canva library, and then I just chose two photos to include on the scallop frames. And then I grabbed two more scallop frames, which are a little bit smaller, and these are to add some illustrations or cutter parts too. And even though I knew that there are a lot of like square cards included in the smaller format, I didn't really know what the actual size is and which cutout I want to use. But again, I can just adjust the size of the frame later. So first I'm going to my digital paper stash, and I decided to grab this 12 by 12 inch paper because there are a lot of like smaller cards included in the square format. And then I just cut it down to one of those smaller cards. And then I lay my card on the scallop frame so that I can look if the size would fit. And this size actually fitted very well on the scallop frame. You have to be careful though if you're using drag and drop and it's not the exact size as the size of the photo mat on the frame. It might be that it just makes the image a little bit smaller. So you could just delete the placeholder instead and then just lay your cutout onto it, because that's the cutout you want to use, and it doesn't matter if the frame is a little bit larger. If you want the scallops to be smaller, you could still again adjust the frame. So that's what I did here. And then for the second cutout, I was looking for the perfect count to use. So I just double clicked again on my frame, and then I was looking for another cutout which would fit well. And I was also looking for a blue cutout, so I wasn't really finding the perfect cutout on this paper, so I grabbed another paper from my digital paper stash from the smaller paper pad, and that's what I used on here. So as you can see, again, I grabbed the paper first, cut it down to a square format, and then I just laid it onto my scallop frame. And because I'm using a physical collection, the scaling of the papers in the background are not correct yet. So that's not what the patterns would look like in my actual album. So I have to use my cutting mat, which I designed for each of those interactive page styles. So I'm just grabbing the papers I want to use. So the papers I chose first by using drag and drop, and now I can just use the cutting mat to cut them down in the actual size. And as you can see, now for the plate paper as well as for the star paper, the patterns get larger because it's a 12 by 12 inch paper, which I cut down to 8 by 8 inches. And then for this dotted paper on the photo mat, I actually don't have to use my cutting mat because I already know that this is 6 by 6 inches, but I can of course double check. So I'm grabbing this 6 by 6 inch paper from my digital paper stash, and then I just lay it onto the cutting mat for this page style. And as you can see, it's the perfect size, so I don't have to change it. And with that, we can continue with decorating our next double page, which is double page number 3. And first, again, I have to choose a page style I want to use. And I decided to go with my favorite page style, number 9, which is a beautiful accordion style page style closing with a ribbon closure. And I knew that this like 4 by 6 inch booklet on this page style would work well with one of these 5 by 7 inch greeting cards I got with the collection. So I know I have to cut them down a little, but still I was looking for one of those images to include on here. And then again, I just tried out some paper combinations, and I really liked this leaf paper here. And as I said in my first video for this series, this is definitely my favorite paper in the collection. It goes so well with almost like all illustrations. But I especially liked it in combination with this greeting card I used here. So I left it for now, and then I also wanted to add something to my basic page on the right side. And for those of you who already got the digital mini album planner, this is something new for you because I didn't include that in the first version of my mini album planner. But as you know, you will always get like free updates or free additions to this planner. So every time I'm designing something new, I make new frames or I find an error in the planner, I will of course change it, and then you simply have to use your original template links to find these new updates. And these frames can be used as frames, but they can also be used as text spots, and I really love to include them on my additional page flaps. So if you watched previous videos, you may already know that with my album style, I like to use an album including 5 basic pages as well as 5 additional page flaps. However, I only add my interactive page styles to my basic pages. So on a double page, in like most cases, I always have an interactive page style on one page, and then the other page I just leave very simple, and I just like to add some frames to it and some decorative elements, but no heavy page styles. But you could also add those tuck spots or those frames to these pages. So I'm just choosing this like half scallop frame here, which I can add to the side of my page flap number 2. And again, as I said, I don't really like this pattern paper with all the leaves, but I also don't hate it. So I want to include it. I just don't want this to be very like present or dominant. So I'm just adding this to this tuck spot or frame, however you want to use it. And then for the rest of the basic page or for the rest of the page flap, I'm just going with a solid cardstock or solid paper. And I already like how this double page looks now, but I also wanted to add some more corner frames to the left side. And this time I actually wanted to add all 4 corners, and I just made them a little bit smaller and then added them to each corner. And I always try to repeat patterns or colors from the other page. So that's what I did here. So I chose this grayish solid paper, and then I of course also added the same paper to these corner frames. And because I have to be careful with how much I want to use this leaf pattern paper, I actually tried out some different combinations, but at the end I sticked with this pattern paper. So I just know that I can't use it as much now because I just got the physical collection, and I think I have this paper like 4 times, but then it's also double-sided and I also like the back side. So yeah, but at the end, as you can see, I still chose this paper. Now with the booklet I chose for my interactive page style, I do have some pages to add my photos to, and I actually cut out this part for this video so that this video is not going to be so long, but of course this is something you would open up and then you can add different photos inside of this booklet. But I also want to show you what you could add to the white page, and especially like with this scallop frame we added, which is more like a strip on the right side. I felt that this would go very well with using one of my grids I included in the planner as well. And you can still adjust the sizes of those grids and then make it fit perfectly with the page. And then again, if you haven't watched my information video on how to use this planner, then you should definitely check it out because it's so great that you could just like use your photos on the grids or in the page styles. And then once you have finished planning your album, you can just print those photos in exactly the sizes you need. So this digital mini album planner is just so great for planning your photos and then printing your photos. So I just added those 3 like example photos here, but you could of course also use one of those photo places for adding some journaling. That is something you could always do. So instead of adding a photo, you could just change the background to the color you like and then add some text to this photo mat. And it felt like there is still something missing, so I just grabbed this scalloped circle frame and added it to the right side as well. And then I was just looking for one of those circle cutouts from the collection which I could use on this frame, and I actually found those on this 6x6 inch paper, and I did like both of these options, but at the end I went with the green cutout saying baby love. And I really love how these two pages turned out, but I again have to adjust the sizes of some of those papers to actually be in the correct scaling. So I need my cutting mat, and then first I adjusted the size of the leaf pattern paper. So I cut it down using the cutting mat, and then as you can see now the pattern is much larger than it has been before by just using drag and drop. And the same applies to the card I wanted to use, because this card is in the size 4x7 inches, and I have to cut it down to the size of pattern paper A, which is 4x6 inches. And then for the leaf pattern paper, as I said in my information video, I didn't include cutting mats for all these different scallop frames because, as I said, you can just adjust the size and then the cutting mats wouldn't be very helpful. So I just made those cutting mats for my interactive page style. But what you can just do is you can just lock these frames in place, and then you can grab the paper you want to use on the frames from your digital paper stash and just lay them on here and use the locked frame as like the cutting mat itself. And then you can just cut down your paper and then unlock the frame and drag in your paper, and then you can also be sure that this is exactly what the pattern or the paper would look like in your physical album. And then for the next double page, I chose to include my interactive page style number 15, which is definitely one of my favorite page styles. I have used it in so many different albums. And the reason for choosing this page style is, again, that I had a paper I wanted to include, and I knew that this page style would go very well with the illustrations. And this is actually the same paper we have already used for double page number 2, but this time we are going to use all these for illustrations. So I'm again grabbing this 6x6 inch paper, and if you cut it down in like 4 parts, then each of these cards or illustrations are 3x3 inches, and they fit just perfectly on this page style. So as you can see, when I add this paper to my cutting mat for page style number 15 and actually onto the cutting mat for pattern paper A, and then I cut down the paper to the size of pattern paper A, it just fits perfectly, and then I can just copy and paste it into my interactive page style. And first I'm just adding this 4 times to all of those 4 elements for interactive page style number 15. And then I just changed the cutouts of this pattern paper so that I have all these 4 animal illustrations included on this page style. After trying out some papers to use on this double page, I was actually thinking that I want to change my magnet closure, which is this heart piece in the middle of page style number 15. So instead of this heart-shaped element, I wanted to use a circle scallop frame on which I could also add one of the cutter parts from the collection. And for this, I tried out some different options, and at the end, I decided to go with this cutter part just saying baby. And then I also changed the pattern paper on the left side because I felt it's just a little too much, because you have the illustrations of the animals already on the interactive page style. So I didn't want them to be on the pattern paper as well. And instead, I just chose a solid paper in this like brownish color, because this will go very well with the cutter part I chose for my magnet closure. Now I want to show you another option for a tuck spot or a decorative frame you could add to the page flap on the left side here. And this is this half scallop frame which I just added to the left side here, and then I of course had to look for some papers or decorative elements to decorate this frame. And to be honest, it took me so long to actually find something to decorate this half scallop frame. So I knew that I wanted to use one of those ephemera pieces to add here, and I actually decided that the kangaroo would fit perfectly because there's no kangaroo image on the right side of this double page. But for some reason, I just don't like that there's also a flower on this ephemera piece. I would wish the kangaroo would just be like the kangaroo and no more illustrations on top. So at first I was thinking that maybe I want to cover up this flower. But to me, nothing really looked like. So at the end, I left the kangaroo just as it is and added it on here. But I'm not so happy with how this decorative element looks like. So if you have any ideas on what to add instead or how to change it, then let me know in the comments down below, because I think when I'm crafting this album, there are still some changes I need to make to be fully satisfied with this double page. And because I already cut down the pattern papers A for my interactive page style, there's only the pattern paper on the scallop frame which I have to adjust the size for. So that's what I'm doing here, and then this page style or this double page is finished for now, but as I said, I will probably change something on the left side here, or I will just see what it looks like in the actual physical album. Let's continue with the last double page I'm going to decorate in this part of the series. And this is double page number 5, and the page style I want to add to this page is my interactive page style number 39. And when choosing papers or colors I want to use on a page, I'm always keeping in mind which colors or which papers I have already used on the previous pages. So I don't really want to use the same paper combination on like 2 double pages in a row. So I try to keep that in mind. So I knew that I haven't used this like polka dot paper on the last pages. So that's what I wanted to use here. And then for the tag pocket on my interactive page style, I know that the pattern paper is in the size 4 by 6 inches. So I knew that I could use one of the 6 by 6 inch papers instead of a 12 by 12 inch paper. So I did just grab my favorite paper from the collection, but this time in the size 6 by 6 inches, which I haven't used so far. So yeah, that's what I added there. And then I also added another 6 by 6 inch paper on the belly band behind this tag pocket. And then I grabbed the inner 4 by 6 inch scallop frame to add onto my tag pocket. And I know that most of the journaling cards or cutter parts are not as large, so first I went with the greeting cards I got with the collection, and I was looking for one to use here, but it had to be like one of the smaller ones, so I was trying out the cockatoo first, and I just added it onto the frame. Again, I had to cut it down by locking the frame in place and then using it as a cutting mat. But I didn't end up liking this option, so instead I went for this 12 by 12 inch paper sheet with a lot of cutted parts. And I actually was thinking to use the pink one because that would match with the pattern paper I already want to use. So again, I had to cut out the card first, and I knew that I had to adjust the size of the frame because this is not a very large illustration. So that's what I did, and then once I had the frame in the correct size and my journaling card cut down, I was actually quite happy with what this double page looks like now. But I also wanted to add something to the page flap, so to the right side of this double page. And for this, I again went to my decorative elements, which are included in this digital mini album planner. And this time I chose again some corner frames, but not the scallop corner frames, but instead I went for these like regular circle corners. And this whole page with the more like basic frames is also a new page I just added to the digital mini album. So if you got the planner already, as I said, you can just get these upgrades for free. You simply have to use the original template link when making your album, and then you can find this page including all these basic frames. And I actually added those especially for those of you who don't have like scalloped die cuts in your stash, or you don't have a die cutting machine, because for these frames you simply have to use your cutting mat or cutting board to cut down your papers and cardstock, and then which is also optional, you could use your corner punches like to round your corners or add any decorative elements to your corners. And I will definitely make sure that in the next part of this YouTube series, I'm going to use one or two of those basic frames so that you can see how you could use them instead of those scallop frames. But back to the corner frames I added here, I decided to just use two corners and then add them to like the opposite sides. And then for the pattern paper, I also chose this greenish solid paper. And just an idea for how to add a photo now to this page, you could use another scallop frame, and I would probably use a rectangle one and in the landscape format. So that's what I'm grabbing here, and then I just add it to the middle of the page, and I think it looks really nice. It fits well with the corners. I just adjusted the size because I don't want this frame to lay onto the corner frames, because I don't want to use them as like corner pockets, as in my favorite page style number 20. We have already used this page style, but instead I just want them to be decorative and then the photo in the middle of the page. I always find that these corners are especially great to add any ephemera pieces or cutter parts to. So that's what I did here. I chose the koala ephemera piece and used my magic grab tool to grab it from the like scanned in page with all the ephemera pieces. And then I added it to the corner pocket on the bottom. Well, it's not a corner pocket, it's just a corner frame, but yeah. So, and then I was thinking that I don't like this image to be so close to the illustration on the left side. So I decided to just choose some other corner frame. So instead of having the corner frame on the left bottom side, I want this to be on the right side. And then lastly, I added another scallop frame, and as I said in my previous video, this frame in this size is not included in my planner just yet. So this is also a new frame, or like a new size for this frame. So I haven't included it yet because I want to create more frames in this size, and then I will definitely add them all at once to the digital mini album planner. And this frame is the perfect size for those cutter parts from the 6x6 inch paper pad. So that's actually why I created it in the first place. So I grabbed the paper with these cutter parts and then I cut them down to size and I laid them onto the frame to find the cutout I want to use. And I could have just moved the whole frame a little bit to the left, overlapping the like corner frame here, but instead I decided that I actually want this to be right at the edge of the page, and for this I had to cut down the scallop frame by actually cutting off the side of the frame. And this had me also trim down the cutter part I want to use here, and then I just double checked if this is the cut out I want to use or if I could find another one, and I actually chose this one, saying dream big little one, because it would just fit perfectly with the journaling card I used on the left side. Now, because I know that I already have used this greenish colored solid paper and I'm going to use it probably again in this album, I was just trying out some other solid colors which would work with this decoration as well. So I actually really like this grayish color, and I also think another option would be to use the brown solid paper. So I will probably just check at the end and see which papers I want to use here and how many papers I have left. And that's really something I love so much about this planner, because you can always take a second look at the options you have. And then to finish up this double page, I just had to adjust the scaling and sizes of the two polka dot papers. And as I said, on the right side, I'm going to use one of the 12 by 12 inch papers, and then for the belly band on the interactive page style, I'm using one of the 6 by 6 inch papers. So that's the reason why the dots on the left side are much smaller compared to the ones on the right side. Now that's it for today's video, so I really hope that you enjoyed watching it, and then I would love to see you in my next video, which is the third part for this YouTube series, and we are going to decorate the next 4 double pages. As always, if you enjoyed watching this video, I would really love to get your feedback in the comments. Also, make sure to leave a thumbs up. This really helps my channel to grow. And then I'm hoping you're having a great day, and I see you in my next video. Bye!